All right, I am live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and this is my channel. We love comics. It is a gorgeous day here in Florida. It is currently 77 degrees. I can't say complete blue sky, but the clouds are breaking up, and the sun is actually trying to shine through. That's my kind of December. I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody's ready to have a good New Year. I definitely am hoping 2024 is a good year for us all, but it should be an interesting one nonetheless. And I wanted to make this video really quick because I've been watching a lot of videos lately about financing and, you know, how to avoid paying lots of interest and stuff like that. And if you're one of the people who is buying on credit, in other words, using credit cards, I would highly recommend against that. Because especially if you have to pay payments, the interest alone is going to make the amount that you've spent on a comic that much more expensive. Especially if you're buying it on eBay, for example, where they charge you tax as well. So if you are buying on eBay and you can get a PayPal account with PayPal credit, I mean, obviously the best way to buy comics is cash. But not everybody these days can afford, especially a more expensive comic, by paying cash. So a lot of people these days, I mean, you could look at the credit bureau where they've been saying there's like almost $1 trillion in added credit card debt over the past year or so because of wonderful situations going on around the world. So a lot of people are using credit cards to be able to buy things, which means if you're accumulating other purchases, you could potentially be paying a lot of interest these days, especially when credit card companies are charging as high as 30% for interest rates, which is absolutely ridiculous. Not many people have great credit anymore these days. So if you are able, if you have decent enough credit and you can apply for PayPal credit, because that may be the only option, you have 6 months, and sometimes they do specials up to 1 year, where if you pay it off within that either 6 month or 1 year time frame, they charge you 0 interest. So the way they do it is they hope that people will be like on credit cards where they can't pay and they'll end up ultimately charging you interest. So the key is, here's the thing I tell people. If you cannot pay for something within 6 months, you should not buy it. Especially if it's not something that is a needed purchase. But if you can, say for example, you have an extra $200 you could spend per month. Well, that's a purchase of $1,200 if you use PayPal credit, to where you could buy, instead of a $200 book or save up for 6 months, you can get it right away, because you never know. There might be a deal on a book that may not be available in another 6 months, let alone in another 6 hours. Because you never know how a price of a book can go up or down at any given moment. So using the PayPal credit will allow you to be able to get a more expensive collectible. And if you are able to pay it off within the 6 month period, or when they do the specials of 1 year, you're not paying any interest at all. So unless you get a new credit card where they give you 6 months to a year, no interest, putting a purchase on your regular credit card is not a smart thing to do unless you could pay it off the very next month. Because a regular credit card only gives you a 30-day grace period, which means anything that you do not pay completely gets charged interest. So, you know, I'm not saying PayPal credit is the best option, because like I say, paying cash is always the best way. Or if you need to use a credit card, you use your debit card if you have the money in the bank. The worst thing to do is purchase, especially a large purchase that you may not be able to pay back right away. The worst thing to do is put it on a credit card. So I wanted to give that tip to especially newer people, or, you know, just collectors, and, you know, it doesn't even have to be comics, just any kind of investor who's trying to save themselves money. And that's why you really have to look into, when it comes to anything, even buying a car or buying a house, finding out what your options are to get the most benefit to you and not to someone else. Because, for example, if you see a house these days and you put a mortgage on it and they say 7.5% interest, you're actually paying approximately, at the end, if you pay just the minimum every month for 30 years at a 7.5% rate, you are ultimately paying about 150% of the money that you pay in total in interest, even though they only say it's 7.5%. It's ridiculous, because you will pay 98% of your first payments for the first 10 years, or actually for the first 7 years, are primarily mostly interest. So you get ridiculously charged. Like, for example, if you have $1,000 a month payment with a 7.5% interest, about $985 of that money is going just towards interest and not the principal. So that's why I'm trying to say, sometimes if you get a different type of bank loan, like a line of credit, for example, you'll actually pay less interest and can actually pay off things quicker. So the idea is to not always rely on credit cards to make a purchase. Now, again, I'm trying to talk to people who don't have the cash, and they're going to buy these things regardless, and they just think, well, I have a credit card. Let's say you're only paying 10% interest. You're still paying interest if you don't pay it all the next month, unless it's a new credit card. And you don't want to be one of those people that opens up too many credit card accounts, because you'll destroy your credit. Because remember, your credit is not based all on what you've spent. It's how much you could potentially spend. And I'll give you a prime example. Let's say for some reason you open up 10 credit cards. You get approved for 10 credit cards. Each one has a $1,000 spending limit. But you only spend $50 a month on all those credit cards combined. They're not basing it on the $50 you're spending. They're basing it on the $10,000 in potential spending you could do. So actually getting too many credit cards, even if you don't use them or barely use them, can actually destroy your credit. And a lot of people have credit cards where they have $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 credit limits, and you have multiple cards. They're basing your credit on not what you're spending, but what you could potentially spend by maxing out the card. So you want to be very careful when you make purchases on anything, just because a bank or a loan officer or somebody on TV gives a commercial that sounds too good to be true. Because the numbers are never what they claim them to be. And I'll give you a prime example as a person is driving on the wrong side of the road towards me. Interesting. And that's good. Lady just got aggravated at me. She's driving on the wrong side of the road and was inconvenienced by having to move into her lane on the road and gave me a look like, how dare I? Gotta love people. But anyway, the idea is you want to, especially if you're buying something for an investment, you don't want to keep adding fees onto the ultimate cost, because even if you forget or you don't write down the interest payments, you're still paying extra for a comic. So if you bought a comic for $1,000 and you ultimately spend $100 in interest because you couldn't pay for it right away, well, you've now spent $1,100 on that credit card, even if you just write down on the back of the comic book slab that you spent $1,000. So people really need to research what they're doing and be more careful. So again, I hope people understand. I'm not trying to tell people, open up an account that you may not be able to afford. My thing is, if you cannot afford to buy a comic book, then you shouldn't be doing it at all. But I can, for example, I take advantage all the time of being able to buy a comic book that would be a potential good deal. Use the PayPal credit, sell a couple of comics if I have to be able to pay off that PayPal credit within 6 months, and they never charge me a dime in interest. I've been doing that now. I would say, honestly, the majority of my purchases of comics, my big comic book purchase, anywhere from $100 up to $5,000, have, I think 98% of them have been PayPal credit since about 2017. And I have not paid a dime in interest. So that's years and years of being able to purchase something that I might not have been able to afford at that single moment, but knew that I would be able to pay it off in that time period, off before the 6 months. And I ultimately end up not having to pay an extra dime. Paying by credit card, I would have to pay interest for every month after the first month. I do not pay it in full. So hopefully that'll help people to just think a little bit differently when it comes to making purchases on anything. And like I said, if you're looking to buy a car or buy a house or some big purchase, make sure you research all your options before you just go to the first bank that offers you a loan and gives you this percentage interest rate that ends up not even being close to what you're actually paying. Because if you buy a house for $100,000, if you pay the minimum on a 30-year loan, you're probably in the end spending about a total of over $300,000 on a $100,000 purchase. There are much better ways to be able to keep money in your pocket and stop giving it to others. So thanks for watching, guys. Short little video. Hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas. I hope you have a very Happy New Year. Be safe. Do not drink and drive. And if you want to leave a comment, that's great. And out of 11 kind people to watch this video, we got 3 that hit the thumbs up button. So thank you for that. Lee Smith is the only one in the live chat. So you are today's surprise subscriber shout out, which means you could put your channel name or a specific video in the comment section. Or if you'd rather put a link to your social networks, you can do that instead. Or if you sell anything on eBay, Etsy, Amazon, any of those places, you'd prefer to do that instead, I'll leave you the choice. Just keep in mind, any link has to be approved before it's seen on the comment section. So if you do see something, that means it has been approved. So go check them out and show some support. Hopefully this is helpful to somebody. If it is, leave a comment and you can even share it. Maybe help somebody else. So put more money in your pocket and less in the bank's. Have a great day, and don't forget, it's not you, it's not I, it is We Love Comics.